So my latest video about the crash that put me in a wheelchair was by far the most popular, even more so than the paragliding off a skyscraper in Dubai, which didn't have me in it at all. I do have some Volbiv adventure paragliding videos too, guys, if you want to check those out. But yeah, I have read all the comments, even though I haven't responded to any yet. And it got me thinking. A few weeks ago I thought of making a video about the philosophy of risk and how we all think about it, and yeah, all that kind of stuff. I thought maybe I can try stand-up comedy as well, but I'm not quite there yet. So for sure, anytime you post a video of a crash, you get a lot more views. And I actually did have a plan to dig up all the old crashes that I haven't published and put them in YouTube if I ever want to become a star. But I think there's also an interest in preventing accidents, because most people watch the videos for selfish reasons. Like if they're watching a video about Volbiv, it's because they want to do it themselves. They just want to get ideas of what gear to have, how it all works. And yeah, people want to prevent accidents. And I think, you know, when you're driving a car, a lot of the reason that you're not speeding is because you don't want to fine. It's not really because you don't want to crash and have an accident, but in flying it is definitely more dangerous than driving a car, depending on how you do it, of course. But yeah, safety is a definite factor. Like, I've had so many people contacting me with similar injuries, better or worse or different or whatever, but yeah, a lot of people have accidents in paragliding. Most of the comments on my video were very supportive. There were a few, why didn't you post the crash of the video, were you embarrassed or whatever, but I don't normally video everything when I'm flying. I just video as much as I want to edit later, because I go for days potentially without recharging batteries, and I have to make the SD card last, and I don't want to sit for hours and hours in front of the computer. Well, it is fun, but I don't want to do it too much later on. So yeah, I did lose a GoPro, but I hardly ever use that, and it's very unlikely I had any footage. The helmet camera that I had, I just had all the footage, so I'll actually include the bits where I move the hand to the head to turn off the camera for all the doubters out there. But yeah, I basically shared everything I knew in the video. In my crash video, I looked at a lot of the different ways that I could have been taking risks, and I decided they weren't really a factor in my accident. Everything I did seemed to be like a great situation, and yeah, it was good weather, I was comfortable with the wing, I was in a relaxed frame of mind. So I concluded that it was basically just one of those risks that can always get you with paragliding. I've definitely gotten away with a lot worse things in the past. I've flown all over the world in all kinds of weather conditions, and sometimes I've been pushing myself a lot harder than I did that day, for sure. I was just flying back and forth and whatever. But yeah, I did notice that in the comments some of the people are trying to explain things away, like you did this wrong, you did that wrong, and that's a normal psychological response, trying to see. So if I made a mistake, you know, if he made a mistake, if he did this wrong, as long as I don't do that, it won't happen to me. And yeah, I did notice that. You know, some people saying I was flying in the lee. It was pretty much the only time of the flight that I wasn't in the lee. So yeah. One of the ways I think about risks is, out of all the people I know paragliding, how many have had accidents or died from that, and how many have had accidents or died from other causes. And it hasn't been too bad. I've been a little bit lucky in that a lot of the accidents in paragliding have happened to people that I haven't really known. Maybe that's because I spend most of my time out in the mountains and not the paragliding site, sitting on the hill with the others, but yeah. I would say that paragliding is definitely one of the more dangerous things you do in life, but it also gives you much richer experiences, and really it's up to the individual as to what they choose, where they draw the line. And I know a mate of mine, Hamish, we used to fly together in the early years, and we had some amazing experiences in the Southern Alps here in New Zealand, and in the end he gave it up. He still liked to follow the sport, but he decided it was a bit too risky for him to do it himself. He had a family, and yeah, that totally makes sense. I would never want to talk someone into flying. It's always their choice. For me, a lot of the value of the kind of flying I was doing, especially Volbiv trips in the mountains, was about planning the trip, like looking at the map and just getting excited about where you might be able to go, and also sharing the experience, like documenting it, taking videos and photos, and and having some stories to tell at the end of it. So yeah, you could argue that I'm not being as safe, or that taking the footage is making me less safe, or it's making me doing more exciting things for the audience. But I don't know, I'm not saying that's not the case, but I was pretty used to it. It was a normal thing for me, and it actually helped me learn a lot. By saying what I was thinking through the flight, I could re-watch it. Sometimes I would say something about a flight, and then I'd go back and watch the video later and realise that actually what I was saying was completely wrong, because I hadn't noticed something when I was flying or whatever, just remembered it wrong. But yeah, when you watch the videos and you sort of relive it, it kind of gives you more flying experience, I think. So that was one of the reasons I did it, and it's just some of the places I went to are so beautiful, and it's just amazing to have those memories. I remember before the accident looking at some of the stuff that was going on in Pakistan, and I just thought, why are they so crazy? Why do they take those extra risks? Like, maybe do those places in places where there's a good medical system that you've got a chance of rescue. But one way of explaining Pakistan, I had a short trip there once, is that if you divide it up into little squares, the map, 99% of those squares are going to be an instant death if you ended up hitting the ground there. Glaciers and steep rocky faces and gorges and whatever. So yeah, it's probably another psychological comfort to think that there's some pilots that'll never have an accident because they're just so experienced. But I don't know, I think in mountaineering and other risky sports they have got a pretty even spread of accidents, like between beginners and intermediates and more advanced. And yeah, there's not like a committee in the sky that decides, this guy's needs an accident now. Like, there's a bit of luck behind it, and you can be doing some stupid stuff and get away with it, or you can be relatively safe and then have an accident. My dad was rescued when he died just over 20 years ago by my neighbour, who's taken him deep into the mountains. Like, he knows how to get around up there. And yeah, my neighbour's impression was that he was a pretty cautious guy, but he'd spent a lot of time in the outdoors, and the mountains are a dangerous place. Younger males are definitely more at risk of spinal injuries because they tend to take more risks. But my experience going to the spinal unit in New Zealand was that actually a lot of the guys there didn't even have traumatic injuries, as in it was some kind of disease that attacked their spine or whatever, or they were just elderly and something relatively simple like tripping over a wire or falling over or whatever gave them that injury. And yeah, in general, like, sometimes people get angry at people like me who are out there taking risks and costing society money when they get hurt, but that's a point. But on the other hand, when you go to a hospital, you find that it's not full of people like me who are out there taking too much risks. It's full of people who are smoking, or too fat, or too old, or just basically suffering because of not doing enough, like a sedentary lifestyle, and just not being healthy. So my habit has been dangerous at times, but it has also got me very fit, and it's got me out and enjoying life, and yeah, I can't complain. I remember some years ago Kriegel said, I think it might have been in his X-Helps interview, in answer to what are you most proud of or something like that, that he'd never had an accident, and then he did have an accident. He was on a tandem and he broke his leg, and he was out of action for a little while, but he's fully recovered. So yeah, that's an example of even the best pilots can have accidents. But he was really happy that it wasn't a competition that was causing him to take more risks. And in the same way, I was happy that my accident wasn't because I was, being a smart ass thinking I can fly in any kind of conditions, or, everything seemed perfect. So I was happy about that side of it. So, would Kriegel be safer if he gave up flying? Well, yeah, I think he would, but on the other hand, then he'd have to contend with, being motivated to stay fit and the potential of lifestyle diseases. Like, in the end, one way I think about the accident is that in the end, everyone gets old. I've been to a gliding club before, and everyone just talks about their health problems. And yeah, you're going to fall apart eventually, so I've just accelerated that process a little bit, and yeah, I had a good life. I had a good run.